Hello and welcome to Game Day from the UK, another Miami Heat UK live streaming show. Brought to you tonight to preview tonight's game against the Golden State Warriors, the 2 and 5 Heat against the 3 and 4 Warriors. Doesn't sound right, does it? What a bizarre start to the season. Let's get into it. But first of all, as always, let's introduce my wonderful cast. Ollie Rahimi, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, mate. Thank you very much. Most importantly, Dan, how was your birthday?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant, mate. Thank you very much. Yeah, another decade starts into the big 4 zeros. But yeah, a really good day. Thank you very much, mate. James Stone, how are you, sir?
Fantastic, thank you. I've upped my background game for this game. Hopefully, it'll bring us some luck for tonight.
Let's hope so, mate. We certainly need it. Love it. Thank you very much. Sam Post, how are you, my man?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. Background's not great, but I've got the proper headphones this time. So, you know.
That's it. As we say, as long as we can see and hear, golden. Great start. Guys, yes, the last time we rocked up, it was to go up against the currently winless Sacramento Kings. Heat rolled up, and I'm sorry, but you cannot rock up to any NBA arena, Ollie, and play like that first half performance. You're just not going to get anywhere. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. Doesn't matter if you're a bunch of scrubs, a bunch of G Leaguers. If the mentality isn't right, if the effort isn't there, you are not going to win basketball games. And that first quarter, especially, arguably one of the most drab performances that I've seen at the Miami Heat play. Just nothing going whatsoever. But most alarmingly, the effort just wasn't there. And that isn't Miami Heat basketball. It's not Miami Heat culture. What did you make of that game? I know we rallied and we made it close in the end, but the Heat just shouldn't have put themselves in that position against, let's be honest, a really bad Kings team.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well when you said that's just not Miami Heat basketball at all. That's not Heat culture. It's not the way that we do things. Yeah, it was just a bizarre one. It almost seemed like the kind of game that you get maybe towards the end of a regular season where, you know, we've maybe locked into the third seed or something like that. And it's like, okay, we're winding down now, ready to wind back up for the playoffs. But, you know, to have made a bad start like we have, and then to come out and not show the bare minimum, which in my eyes is effort and a bit of heart, a bit of grit and determination. It was worrying. And, you know, it's not the way that any of us envisaged the season starting. I'm sure it's not the way that the team and the players did either. But they need to correct it quickly. And obviously they've got a good opportunity tonight against, again, the Warriors, still the reigning champs, still probably the best team in the NBA. You know, the best franchise in the NBA, definitely for the last decade, ever since Miami's reign ended. So, yeah, it's the perfect night to bounce back, but I don't think we can afford to slip up too many times more than that. And the longer it goes on with a lack of effort, the more and more worried that I'll become.
Yeah, and that's the thing. See, I don't mind. Miami Heat are going to have bad games in the season. Every team will have bad games. There's always, you can almost tell quite quickly that you just think, okay, it's going to be one of those nights. The ball's not rolling in. We're not getting the right bounce. You know, those games happen regularly throughout an 82 game regular season. But when you've already had a bad start, and, you know, I don't mind losing to the Warriors like we did the other night because Steph Curry did Steph Curry things. There's no disgrace in that. That's fine. I don't mind losing those games. But when you've had a bad start, James, and then you don't show what Ellie said there, the bare minimum. You're making it look like you're playing dead rubber games at the end of the season. That's not it. And, you know, I think that you look at, I know we was a little bit hampered, you know, Bam had to go out with a bit of foul trouble. We had UD coming in early. So there's reasons for why it maybe didn't go our way, but I can't have the effort being that low. And that's alarming when you've already had a bad start to the season, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Like you said, that the first half was just all over the place. Everyone seemed frustrated. You could see Jimmy was making gestures to players to make movements. Why weren't they getting into the right position? And you could watch it, and it just seemed off. Everything seemed off. The pace was off. The switching was off. The lineup was off at times. Like I said, UD coming in early. I can't understand why Jovic isn't playing. Spo's come out today and said he's going to get G League minutes. So there must be something there that they're not quite comfortable with dropping him in. But when our form's as bad as it is at the minute, could it get any worse than giving him some minutes? But the second half of the game definitely turned it round. Tyler had a superb end towards the game, especially. He racked up the points. The problem that we've got at the minute is we're so reliant on Bam being on the court because everything is driven through him, offense and defense. And if we lose him to foul trouble early, there's no one that can fill that gap at all at the minute. And that wasn't the problem at the start of the game last week, but it certainly became a problem as we went on. And I worry about that tonight against Golden State. Bam needs to stay clear of foul. He needs to stay on the court as long as he can. But the effort just needs to be there. Like you said, they need to be playing the plays that they're obviously in training, doing. They know what to do. The shots weren't dropping. Strus was about 2 for 11 from 3, which that's not normal for him. They just weren't dropping. So I think if everyone can just turn up the kind of ante this tonight and put a bit more effort in, a bit more momentum, then it should help. But it can't get worse than the start to last game.
No, and that's it. And yeah, you're right to highlight the Bam sort of foul trouble thing, because that's already happened a couple of times this season, and it's so vital, as you say, that we can't afford to have him off, because the drop off is so huge then to your Dedmans and your inexperiences of Jovic, etc. So yeah, there is points there, and that's what also makes it even more frustrating, is the fact that the Kings played pretty much more than half of that game without Sabonis on the court because he got into foul trouble. So that makes it even more appalling, really, that we couldn't get that over the line despite going down so heavily in the first half. Tyler Hero, Sam, really good game, 34 points, but there's been almost some criticism of him on the timeline, and almost from some of the sort of coaching stuff, such as saying about this thing about, the people are maybe looking at their own box scores rather than the bigger effort. I didn't really get that. I thought he had a really good game. I thought, don't get me wrong, there's people that know a lot more about this than me. But one thing I do sort of understand, and it is a good point, and it's a good point for a discussion, is with Hero being in the starting unit at the moment, yes, he's playing very well. He's had one bad game. I think every other game he's lit it up, but the ball needs to be in his hands. So with Hero's role now as six-man gone, Miami don't really have anything to replicate that. Our bench scoring going from one of the best is now one of the poorest, and apart from maybe Gabe Vincent, who can sort of create his own shot and get others involved, Miami don't really have that now. So there's an argument of, as well as Tyler has done, should he be running the bench unit at least maybe until Oladipo returns?
Yeah, I think going into the season, the expectation was that Oladipo would fill that sixth-man role. I mean, Tyler Hero's, I think your ceiling's limited if your primary scorer needs the ball in his hands all the time and he's not quite at that all-star level yet. I don't doubt he'll get there, but he's not quite one of the Devin Bookers of the league yet. If we have him off a bench, we look better last season. The fit with Lowry, with Hero, is awkward. And while we're still playing Lowry, I think there definitely is an argument to say that Hero should just move back to the bench. Maybe we pick someone up on the trade deadline. But honestly, the fit with him as a starter is a little bit more awkward than I think a lot of people anticipated. So I wouldn't mind seeing him have more minutes off the bench where he can run the offense. He can do what he did last season, but just fits a little bit better.
Yeah, I think you're right. Look, I think Tyler's been brilliant so far. Arguably been our best player, but it just doesn't mean that you can't just look at it and go, well, look, he's playing well and he's being efficient and his box scoring is great. The fit isn't working at the moment, and I do agree. I think until maybe Oladipo is starting to be integrated back into the team, I might look at maybe bringing Max back into the start and let Tyler go and beat up on those second units because he's so efficient in that. But we'll see. I think maybe a little bit early to stop panicking yet. If we get the Warriors out of the way, the schedule does start to loosen up a little bit for Miami. There's some very winnable games for a bit of a stretch. But it is something to be thoughtful of 100%. Before we get on to the Warriors game, Ollie, I just wanted to sort of highlight another strange performance really from Kyle Lowry. He's really been inconsistent. He's had more poor games than good, but he has had some efficient games. But I don't know if anybody's listened to last night's or yet today's 5 on the Floor from 5 Reasons Sports, but there was this comment from one of the Raptors beat writers that apparently Lowry is very friendly with, got a good relationship with, and he's made some comments about when he was over to Miami during those 2 games last week, and he spent some time with Carl. And there's now been this sort of report to say that He's not overly happy with what's going on in Miami. He's not happy really with the role now, especially maybe with Tyler coming in. He's not seeing the ball in his hands as much. He's not overly keen on this Heat culture being rammed down his throat all the time. He's obviously a little bit put out by the Pat Riley comments. He's still dealing with these personal issues, which we have no idea what they were, but they're still affecting him from what kept him out of last year. And I think the overall package of what the experience was that he was maybe coming to Miami for hasn't really worked out as of yet. And maybe that he's not overly happy. Are you concerned about that? Do you read too much into any of that? I know perhaps you're just hearing all this for the first time. And, you know, I look at last season, big smiles on his face, great relationship with Jimmy and the team. I haven't seen him smile yet on the court this season. Is it a worry?
Yes, but I think, you know, it's a two-way street. Okay, Kyle might not have got what he signed up for, but arguably we've not got what we signed Kyle for. You know, we expected him to come in and just completely run the offense, take us into that top tier, and which, to be fair, last season he did do that in parts, but like you said, the inconsistency was the problem with him. And then you've seen it again this year. He's not, as Sam said, he's not fitting brilliantly with Tyler. And it's getting to a point where you think, right, well, what's the move that we make? Do we drop Tyler to the bench, or do we think about Lowry's contract, which he's 36 years old. He's on a lot of money and he's still got a couple of years left. It's not a great contract to have.
No.
There are obviously worse ones in the league. I mean, I'm not worried about it yet. I think maybe that's just a bit of a ramification of a poor start to the season where everyone's a bit down, everyone's a bit like under the weather about it and feeling a bit beaten up almost. But I would keep an eye on it going forward because I think I can see that escalating and I can see the trajectory where Kyle becomes unhappy and then wants out. And to be honest, I think if it gets to that point, I think the feeling would be mutual. I don't think that the Heat would fight to keep him if he wanted to leave, as long as they could obviously get a good value package in return. But, you know, if he's feeling undersold by the Heat, I can understand that. But then, yeah, as I said, the Heat probably feel undersold by Kyle Lowry and what they've got compared to what they thought they were getting. So I think it's a bit of both. I think both could have done more to facilitate the other. And yeah, it's been unfortunate that it's not been the best fit that we thought it was going to be when he signed.
Yeah, I think you've summed that up very well, considering that, you know, a lot of those things I've just thrown on you just there. You hadn't heard the podcast from 5 Reasons. It is worth a listen. Go and listen to it because they throw a lot more insight into it. But, you know, I think that Kyle was very good last year. I thought that, you know, we needed maybe a bit more from him offensively. I felt that he was still very impactful when he saw us for a very difficult time when we had a lot of injuries. So I'm a big Kyle fan. I always have been. I still hope it works here. And I think maybe the frustration crept in with the bad start we've had is maybe down to the fact that Tyler is maybe taking on more of what his role should be. The ball is in his hands more. But, you know, it's too early to push the panic buttons. I think the Heat will work it out. I think they just need a few results to start making, you know, smiles go on a lot more faces, and there'll be in a lot more sort of comfortability there. But we'll see how that rolls out, because if not, then yeah, I don't see Lowry maybe being on this roster past trade deadline if things don't start to improve. But that's probably a whole new podcast episode, so we won't go too much into it. Anyway, guys, look, we're a quarter of an hour in. Let's start talking about the Warriors. James, the Warriors have not got off to a great start either. So both fan bases are quite similar. I was having a chat with a Warriors fan the other day, and he said, yeah, I feel a lot of what your timeline frustration is, because it's the same. A lot of overreactive stuff about Klay Thompson and people being washed and all the rest of it. And, you know, is this roster as good as what everyone actually thinks it is, and so on. It's just typical bad results. Let's overreact. But the Warriors, a couple of interesting stats here. They're giving up 122 points a game, which is awful. Let's just say that's awful. The only time they haven't given it up was opening day against the Lakers at 109. And then, of course, Miami only putting up 110 against them the other day. But with that in mind, there's a clear issue there that defensively they're not very good. But on the other hand, Miami's offense isn't very good. We haven't hit 120 points yet this season, and the Warriors are averaging 122 points per game. So what gives here? Is it more with Miami now being on home court? Where would you put your money? Would you see Miami maybe breaching this, or are the Warriors going to lock us down a bit like they've been showing that they can do?
I mean, I think I'll always predict Miami to win. Just, you know, I feel like I have to. But I know when we sat here last week with the reverse fixture, I said Miami going to win. I think we all knew in our head it was going to be a tough task for Miami to go to Golden State and win and it proved that it was. Home court advantage should prove an advantage to us, but it showed in the playoffs that it didn't really matter. It showed at the start of this season. I mean, we've played the majority of our games this season at home, and we're still 2-5. So you'd like to think, being at the FTX, getting the fans behind them, it will lift them a bit. The key, I don't think Golden State are in as bad a position as we are, because they've got some, they've got Iggy out still, and they've got, some momentum to go on. They had obviously a longer playoff run than us, so their players shouldn't be as sharp as our players. They didn't have as long to rest. I don't think Golden State will be too concerned about their start, because they know they can get it going. But on the flip side, so do Miami. You've only got to look last season at what Boston did. Midway through the season, the All-Star break, they weren't even in the playoffs, I don't think, and they finished second, I think, in the end. So there's an awful lot of games. There is a lot of overreaction from a lot of fan bases. You look at the bottom of the Eastern Conference in particular, it is not going to look like that in another 70 games' time. We all know it's not. Nets won't be there. 76ers won't be there. We won't be there. You look at the West, and I can't see the likes of the Spurs staying at the top there, and Utah aren't there too much longer. So, I think the offense for us, we just need to hit our averages. That's been our downfall in every game this season. Consistently, we're not hitting averages. We're coming out of games and we're getting players that are shooting well below their average. A lot of players are putting up, I was having a look today at the stats, a lot of players are putting up as many shots as they would normally. They're just not hitting them. Kyle's down at 35% shooting this season, whereas this time last year he was at 45%. So, players are down on their shooting. If they hit their averages, then we're going to score more points. The key is going to be defense. Said it last time, containing Steph Curry on that free, which we did relatively well for 3 periods, and then he just turned it on in the last. And we did compete. We competed against the Golden State a lot more than we did against the Kings. We lost it in the fourth, whereas with the Kings we lost it in the first and the second quarter, and we couldn't ever make it up. So it's just going to be consistent for 4 quarters and try and not let them get ahead. And if we hit our averages, we'll come away with a win.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, the Warriors, they're tough. They're bad start. I mean, they're 3-4. It's not like it's horrific, but their bad start by maybe their own standards is not really going to mean anything to them. They won't really even care where they seed. They're such a playoff team that they'll just lock in and go up so many standards. But they'll be looking for a win. They've had some disappointing results over the last, since we last met, Sam. They've gone, losses against, they've gone 0-3 on the road for a start this season, and they've lost since they beat us. They've lost to Charlotte and Detroit. So not good form. So both teams really need a bounce back here. What would you think here in terms of, Steph Curry again was brilliant. As I said, I don't mind losing games where Steph goes on and does what he does, but is there anything we could have learned from that recent game against the Warriors? And Spo is normally quite good at getting in the lab and sorting those things out. What do you think? Is there one thing that you would highlight that we need to do better on?
I would say it's difficult to fix tactically, but I think every game we lost this season, we've been out-rebounded. When we've out-rebounded our opponents or had a level kind of score there, we're unbeaten. I think if we can somehow find a way to not get dominated on the glass, I'm not saying that Bam's going to go for 30 rebounds, but if we can keep that secure, especially create more second chance points as well on the offensive glass, then we'll have a fighting chance. We couldn't guard Kevin Huerter from 3, so I don't really expect us to hold Steph to a quiet night. And now that I've said that, he'll probably shoot 3 of 10. But at the same time, we need to be more active on the perimeter. The rim penetration that the Kings got, if we let the Warriors do that as well and kick out to find their shooters, Clay might be having a down season, but he's still not a guy that you want to have a ball open in the corner. I think we really need to learn from both the game against the Warriors and against the Kings that we need to tighten up on defense, make sure the rotations look better. The Warriors are one of the best teams for cutting off ball. We can't let them beat us like that.
That's spot on. I think absolutely spot on. I think that's what the mindset I was going down. The perimeter defense with those sort of players on the court just need to be better, and that highlights a little bit, Ollie, towards Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy's come out today and put out some statements with his, I don't care if we're 2-5, we're going to fucking win the championship and all this. Probably not the most ideal thing. Not even got most, best leverage when you're sitting 2 and 5. But at least that's some fight talk. And Jimmy Butler has been passive this season, which is really unlike him. He needs to do a job tonight. We really need to see. Well, let's be honest. If Jimmy Butler is the Jimmy Butler we saw against the Kings, and I suppose you can say a lot of these players the same thing. But we've got no chance tonight because we will get ripped apart. So Jimmy's got to lead by example tonight, because when he does that, the Heat play well.
Yeah, exactly. He's our all-star. He's our superstar. This guy is the best player on our team. And I think he dictates the tempo of how we play a lot of the time. Kyle is the QB1, but I think it is sort of dictated, the energy of the team is dictated by Jimmy and how Jimmy sets out. Look, the comments that you made about winning a championship when we're 2 and 5, okay, fair enough. It reminds me a little bit of the stupidly locked in stuff, which, didn't end very well. I think it's early, but he doesn't really care about the media. He turned up to media day looking the way that he did just for the pure fact that whenever we see his face on NBA TV or ESPN or anything, we have to look at him like that. So he doesn't care what the media think about him or this team, to be honest. But as you said, yeah, we need him to be aggressive. We need him to be the Jimmy Butler that we have seen every single year that he's been here. He has been phenomenal for us, by far and away our best player since he signed. So, like I said, I think he sets the tempo. He can dictate whether we win or lose. But I think another key tonight is Bam, as we've mentioned before, just making sure that Bam can stay on the court for as many minutes as possible. Dedmon is a walking -10. He's just, every time that he's on the court, we're going to be losing. We're going to be losing momentum or whatever. So just if we can keep Bam on the court for as much as possible, get an aggressive Jimmy. Tyler can shoot well. Kyle, maybe with a little smile on his face, can orchestrate things. Then hopefully we'll be all right. But yeah, it's always tough against the Warriors.
Yeah, I love that. Walking -10, that's fantastic. And it's so true. Look, tonight has the vibe of quite a big game. And I think there's a little bit of pressure off tonight because, again, as long as we play well, if we lose to the Warriors, we lose to the Warriors. There's no shame in it. I don't care if I wake up tomorrow morning 2 and 6 and we've competed and played well. But tonight's got a real good vibe about it because if we play well, if we get the win, as I said, the schedule starts to soften up for the foreseeable future. It's a feel-good factor. Everybody can come out of that good, and we're very capable of going on the run. But I think that all starts with Jimmy. I'm going to be watching. My eyes are going to be on him from the get-go tonight, because I think if he, is locked in, gives it an efficient start and scores early, I want to see him score, because everybody else jumps off of that. He puts the team on his back. Everybody runs off of that vibe. So I think a big game for Jimmy tonight. Let's see how we get on. Let's finish with some predictions. Ollie, last time you got us going by saying Heat by 15, even though you didn't actually think we'd win. But still went with Heat by 15. So what are you saying tonight, my man?
It's so confident. No, I think it'll be better. Jimmy to score early. He collapses the defense when he does. Everyone gets drawn to him. Find the open shooters. Tyler have another big night. I think Heat might win it. FTX will be bouncing, hopefully. Bit of a bounce back game. I think it'll be close, though, under 5 points, but I'm going to say Heat to win. Jimmy, 20-point triple-double.
Oh, good man. Like it. James, what are you thinking tonight, mate?
Well, it's a Heat win. It's always a Heat win. I think I'm going to take Ollie's step from the last game. I'm going to say a big win for the Heat. I think there's a lot riding on this game. Like you said, they'll be looking at the future fixtures. This is the launch pad to go on a 6 or 7 game win streak and forget about this rough start. Jimmy is the key. When Jimmy plays well, we win. It's as simple as that. For me, he's probably been our most underperforming player this season. Based on what he's capable of, he hasn't performed at that level other than one game really this season. So he's the key. When he plays well, we win. Tyler to score, and I'm predicting Max Strus 25 plus points off the bench.
Ooh, love it. Okay, so it's looking good. Sam, what are we thinking?
I'm going to say, it's going to be a tough game, but everyone on the team, this is an old team, it's an experienced team. We know we can't just start like this. We can't have another game. If we have back-to-back performances like we showed against the Kings, it's not looking good for us. And I think we know that we need to bounce back. So I trust this team's mentality. I trust this team's talent. We were in the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7. We're not a bad team. If we're engaged, locked in defensively and offensively, the shots will fall. We just need to be present on defense. I think we could win by 5-6 points. It's going to be a tough one, but genuinely, we need to properly lock in, and we'll be okay.
Brilliant stuff, guys. Yeah, very well summed up. Look, I think tonight is going to be a belter of a game. I think both teams are going to be desperate for the win, but I think the Heat, I think the fact that Jimmy has said what he said today maybe gives a feeling that the roster has come together a little bit coming back from the West Coast, especially after that crap performance. I think that the fact that he's made that sort of funny, sort of joking, but Jimmy, there will almost be a side of him that will believe that as well. So I think that maybe there's been a turning point in the roster. I think tonight's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a Heat by 1 win with Butler getting the buzzer beater. There you go. Turn around, fade away, in the net. FTX Arena pumps out. It's going to be outstanding, and that's going to be the start of an 8-game Heat win. There you go. What about that for a prediction? I hope we've all got you excited enough, guys. I hope we try to lift your spirits. There's some positives for you. Really good game tonight. 11:30 start. We're getting this short little window in the season where the hours are a little bit closer, so just 4 hours behind now. So tune into at the Miami Heat UK for in-game comms from 11:30. The Heat take on the Warriors. It's the start of the turnaround. Enjoy the game, guys. Let's go Heat.